We got a belt squat. Why? What do we think? What do I think? And how have I been using it in my training? That is what you're going to get today. What's up, you guys? Real quick, I am Annie Miller, and this is going to be like Annie Miller off the cuff because normally I have my videographer here who has tons of lights and a camera and a monitor and mics and all of the things. And while I have a camera, a light, and a mic, it is not the same. So please bear with the quality of production. It is not my norm. I am producing this myself, so hopefully it is not absolutely atrocious. I am a strength and conditioning specialist, and today I want to walk you through the belt squat that we got. This is not going to be a review of the Squat Max MD, which is the belt squat that we have, but more so why we got it, how I'm using it in my training, how somebody might use a belt squat in their training, what the benefits of it are, and why I'm a huge fucking fan. After you finish watching this video, be sure to watch my full garage gym tour if you are at all interested in other equipment that we have in our home gym. At the time of this recording, Nate and I both have had back injuries in the past. I am 4.5 months postpartum, and Nate and I have both been working on building muscle. That's kind of our goal right now. So strength is a piece of that, but building muscle is our main goal. So hypertrophy, which if you're new here, hypertrophy is just increasing the diameter of each of your muscle fibers. So that is our goal with our training. And a belt squat came to mind when both of us were doing back squats a lot in our training. Now, I love a back squat. It is probably my favorite compound movement. With that, it does have a higher risk of back injuries in comparison with a belt squat. Please do not mistake that for fear-mongering of back squats cause back injuries, because that is not the case. Now, using the belt squat and kind of having this come to mind is not to say that Nate and I aren't both working on the weak links that kind of perpetuate our back injuries. So mobility and strength imbalances, we're both working on those in our training, but the belt squat was just really interesting as an alternative or in addition to back squatting. So right now I am still back squatting once a week. I am actually front squatting once a week, and I'm belt squatting once a week. I fucking love to squat, and mama wants to be quadzilla, and my body just responds really well in the quad department to squatting patterns. So with that, Nate and I just wanted to push our legs really hard with less risk, and the belt squat, I think, has some of the highest potential for that in terms of simply building hypertrophy in your lower body without the risk of back injuries, and we will talk about why that is. So the big sell of a belt squat is that there is no axial loading. Now that just means loading the spine. So compare that with a front squat, a back squat, even a Zercher squat. There is load coming down on the spine that can cause something referred to as systemic fatigue. There is a high neural component when it comes to those types of exercises. That is not a thing with the belt squat because you are loaded from the hips down, and the weight really is pulling you down. It's an interesting sensation that I'm going to show you later and actually like demo on the machine, which you can see behind me. I want to be so clear, this is a luxury item. This is not needed. This is not essential for any gym, in my opinion. And some people may argue against that. I do think it has a very, very high potential use in commercial gyms. If people knew how to use it, to me, it's just that it's a specialty item in that you're gonna get way more done in a squat rack. Overhead presses, bench presses, squatting. Normally they have a pull-up bar, right? This is just for squatting. Now, people do deadlifts and lunges and things, or it's marketed that you can do those things on a belt squat, which I suppose you can. It just, for me, there's other options that make more sense. It is perfect and designed for squatting. It is going to take up a bunch of space, whether it's in a commercial gym or your home gym. And so if you are going to get one, just be sure that it's gonna get a lot of use and make sense for taking up space in your gym, because obviously a squat rack is going to take up, maybe more space or comparable space, but you're gonna be able to get way more out of that in terms of exercise variations. So I just wanna share some of our findings because I think that they were just really interesting, even from like a professional and a personal standpoint. Both Nathaniel and I found, Nathaniel is my husband, found that when we are doing the belt squats, one, we can actually go to failure or close to failure, which is going to be potentially advantageous for hypertrophy. You do not need to train completely to failure. I have a whole other video on that, so please, I don't actually know if it's dropped yet, but search for it or keep an eye out for it. Make sure to subscribe because it's coming if it's not out yet, on do you need to train to failure? And the answer is no. For most people, no. There is a point of diminishing returns when it comes to training to failure. We'll leave that for that video. We do want to train close to failure, and it is just simply and objectively more safe to do that on a belt squat than it is with a back squat or a front squat. So we have really been enjoying taking the belt squat almost to failure, and I'll demo that later, what that looks like and how easy it is. It's very, very appealing the more research that you do, I think. So that was one of our main findings, is that we're able to train our legs to almost failure in that squatting pattern without the fatigue. It's a very interesting sensation. In the belt squat, both of us can completely thrash our legs to where we literally cannot stand up, but that burning sensation is not nearly as intense as it is with back squat, where in back squat, the burn happens way quicker. And again, I'm not claiming that this is like common across the board. This is just our experience. I'm sharing our findings. The burn happens a lot quicker with a front or a back squat, but on the belt squat, muscular fatigue happens quicker with less burn. Hopefully that's making sense. And what's more interesting is that because there is not that systemic fatigue, that neural fatigue, going into our accessory work after the belt squat, which we are using, to be clear, as the main lift in place of a front squat or back squat pattern, we're way less fatigued heading into the accessory work overall. So our legs are thrashed, but we feel less fatigued. And if you're like, this is not making any sense at all, I don't know how else to articulate this, how else to explain that phenomenon. You just have more energy heading into that accessory work, and I can give more to said accessory work. Now, I would be very interested to see if that actually matters in the grand scheme of things. So if I get more hypertrophy from belt squat followed by same accessory work than back squat followed by same accessory work, I would be interested. This is not a control trial. I've only been using the belt squat consistently for a month, so I can't say for me personally if I'm actually going to get better hypertrophic effects from the belt squat than I do from the back squat. My body responds so well to a back squat. My glutes grow, my quads grow, my body just likes to squat. And that is the case for some people, just like some people's bodies really like to deadlift. It just feels good. Their body adapts to it really well. So I will actually talk about too, when we go over to this, the belt squat and start doing some demos and talking through some things, is that it did not feel natural for me at all. I did not actually like the movement. I was really excited to use the belt squat, and then I was like, I would choose to back squat. Like, I do not enjoy the way that this feels, and we'll talk about why a little later in the video. And by a little later, I mean right now. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the actual changes that we made to our squat, or our belt squat machine. But again, this is a luxury piece. There's also a lot of ways to jimmy rig it in a home gym or in a commercial gym. You will probably take note whether you want to jimmy rig it or you are thinking about getting one, or this is just an interesting video to you. We changed a few things about this particular machine, and I do believe at the time of this video, the Squat Max MD was a collaboration, but Titan is the main company, I believe. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. They have made changes based on customer reviews already, and you will hear some of the complaints or issues that I particularly had right now. So let's go ahead and head over and walk through how I've actually been using it, changes we made, and all of the things. Okay, let's go. So before we actually get into the belt squat machine itself, one of the biggest reasons that we would use a belt squat is to still get the same benefits of a back squat with less axial loading. That's the big sell, right? So getting the proper depth, especially because we want muscle growth, was very important for us. That is one of the things that for me, the Squat Max MD did not allow. It also didn't allow it for my husband, and he's 6 foot, I am 5'4". So for both of us, it did not allow us to get to the depth of our squat that we would like to, which was literally just below parallel. Neither of us could get below parallel because the actual pole would hit the base or the bottom of the machine. Another thing that did not allow me to feel natural, which I mentioned earlier, was the belt that they use. So this belt is fucking terrible. Absolutely awful. So stiff, not comfortable. It's also huge. Like, that is the entire length of my torso. My ribs were getting crushed by it. It was digging into my hips. It's not flexible at all. It is just, it's awful. Don't get it. It's terrible. So it worked okay for my husband. He is he's got a wide load. He is wide. He's a wide human. And for him, it was okay, but it was still very uncomfortable. So we actually got 2 different belts from Spud Inc. You can see I want to say it's a large and a small, maybe. I don't think they have a medium. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is not a belt review, but we both really like these. His is obviously the bigger one. Mine is the smaller one, so that's what I'm gonna show you. It's extremely, extremely moldable. Absolutely lovely, super comfortable. Really what would be perfect for me is in between these two sizes, because this sits on my hip bone, and so that, I mean, that's not comfortable to have on my hip bone, but this is still, I mean, insanely more comfortable than the one that comes with the Squat Max from Titan Fitness. It's fucking awful. Like, it's so bad. So anyway, you may have to get a different belt. No matter what belt squat setup, machine, whatever you use, you may end up also purchasing a different belt depending on the belt that comes with it, if it does. Or if you're jimmy rigging it and using a dip belt, then obviously that will work, but you could also jimmy rig it and just invest in a belt that's really comfortable too, because it does make a difference in making the movement comfortable and feel natural. The belt makes a big difference. So this is the belt from Spud Inc. that I am going to be using. So one of the other things that we did to modify this, which actually came from a follower on Instagram who heard me when I was talking and complaining about this particular machine. They work out at a powerlifting gym, and that powerlifting gym has pallets or pieces of wood, rubber, whatever, stacked up to raise the platform in order to get more depth, which again, if muscle growth is the goal, we want a big stretch along the quads, we want a big stretch along the glute. That happens the deeper we go in the squat. So we have, I think, just 2 boards, like wooden boards, raised up. Nathaniel got 2 or 3 more to put underneath here, but even this allows me to get deep enough. I would like to get deeper, but for now this is great. Also, the seat is a thing. So for us squatting down, like eventually my butt is gonna hit that before I can go deeper anyway. So we could take the seat off, but the seat is very nice for getting to failure and then just sitting on the seat, or getting set and actually putting the belt on, which I'll show you next. Before we get set up and actually do it, you'll notice here, I don't know if you actually can, but these are condensed 45-pound, hang on. These are the hardest freaking weights to pick up off the floor. Oh my God, how do I actually do this though? I'm gonna break a nail, you guys. Use a crack in the, I did. I just broke a nail. I kid you not. How fitting. Can you see that? Can you even see that? You probably can't. I'm not a real YouTuber. I don't know how to do this. Anyway, it's broken. Well, shit, I have to take these off anyway, so we'll just do this. Okay, so as you can see, these are the metal plates that we got from Rogue. They're super thin because because I think this pole here fit like 3 bumper plates, which is just not a lot of weight. It would be for me, especially in the belt squat. What I can lift in a back squat is just so different. Huge discrepancy with what I can do with the belt squat. Nathaniel and the boys needed more than 3 45s, so we actually purchased those condensed, really thin Rogue ones. Not cheap, but again, worth it considering how much we use this. So that's the other thing. If I had to use this as is, I literally would not use it because it's too wide of a stance for me. It's very uncomfortable. I do not like it. I do not get the muscular connection that I want to get out of the movement. It's just, I wouldn't use it. It's not comfortable. It's too wide for my legs, my stance. So I don't know if you can see from there. This is a pretty freaking wide stance for me in order to clear those 45s. So though elevating the platform would allow me to get proper depth, or the depth that I want, it's just not a comfortable pattern for my hips. I feel like I'm forcing myself. It's almost a sumo stance for me, so just not comfortable. And if you want a sumo stance, like, then this would be great, but it's just, for me, it's a no-go. So they have this plate, which is awesome in my opinion. So this goes over the top on this particular machine, which is awesome. It's obviously a more narrow stance. I believe this is 15 inches and that's 19 inches width or diameter. That's awesome and I love it, but then I can't use 45s because they don't fit through this diameter. They would run into it and then I wouldn't be able to stand up. I would get stuck. So I have to get 25s or use like a bunch of 10s and 5s stacked up, which again is fine. It's just one of those inconveniences, but inconvenience and not, because if they didn't have this, I literally would not use this machine. I am going to get this set up, put this on, put my 10s on, and actually show you the movement, what it looks like, how I've been using it. Okay, so now we have the smaller plate on. I don't know if you can see that from there. Again, I don't have my fancy producer with me to give y'all the angles. My husband has both kids. I'm just trying to get this done. I'm gonna have it on the loosest one, so I can just do this and stand up. Obviously, there's not very much weight on there. You can also sit down and do this, but my belt is pretty freaking small. So as you can see, like the padding does not come around my waist even. I will show you when I stand up. So for me, I like the belt to be pretty low on my waist. I don't like it to be like on top of my hip bones. That's just not comfortable for me. This is a much more comfortable stance in my opinion, just because it's more natural for me. So all I do here is undo that, and then you'll see how low I can get. So here my butt is hitting this and it's bottoming out at the bottom, which makes sense, but like that's a low squat. I mean, I think that it is low. I could squat lower than that if I really wanted to. I could totally remove the seat. I don't particularly need it to get set up. I can just clip in and go. So I could remove that if I wanted to get lower. But with this machine and any belt squat, you can also play with your weight shift, whereas that's something you're not gonna play with, hopefully, in a back squat. You always want that weight over midfoot. That's not necessarily the case. You want your whole foot on the ground here for sure, but you can play with more knees over toes or sitting the butt back and making it more hingy. So there's just a little bit more freedom in playing with the belt squat. The other thing I wanna point out is that at the bottom, here, it's a dead stop. In a back squat, you can use something called the stretch reflex, whereas here, you're not gonna bounce out of the bottom of this. It really does feel like the weight continues to pull you down through the entire movement, through the bottom. So standing up is by far the most difficult part of this movement, and particularly standing up from the bottom. So this, every time, is so difficult. It is not difficult with this weight, but it is difficult when I have this loaded appropriately with an appropriately challenging load. One of the other things that I love about this is it was weird for me at first to not engage my entire body like I would in a back squat, but it's just not required with this. So you could totally add a kettlebell and hold a kettlebell here to mimic your more normal squatting pattern if you wanted to. But you can also just have your arms out here if you want, or have them here. Your back can give a little bit because again, it's not giving under load. That's the whole point of a belt squat. You can destroy your legs. Your back and your upper body can do whatever they need to do for you to destroy your legs. So I mentioned earlier that going to failure on this is really simple and really easy. So again, if you are jimmy rigging a belt squat, you need to be sure that you can safely hold on to something or assist yourself, whether that's an upright or some kind of anchor, so that if you do bottom out, the weight is not just pulling you to your demise. So if I did get to the bottom and couldn't stand up, you literally just sit back on the seat and unhook yourself. You can grab these as well, but I do not know that that is what they were designed to be used for. They also turn in. That is what stops the weight from going down. I don't know that I would grab these. I would just sit back on the seat. And like I said, at the bottom anyway, my butt is barely tapping the seat. So it really is just sit back and unclip and the weight would just be stuck at the bottom. So that is something, it just feels really safe to push yourself on this machine, and that is why I love it. That is all I have for you. So if I did miss something that you wanted to know about either this belt squat or just belt squatting in general, let me know down in the comments and I am happy to expand there. Also, let me know how I did, if this was absolutely terrible to follow and I just need to keep hiring my videographer. I'm kidding, don't tell me that. Do not tell me that. This was very difficult to do alone, and shout out to all you YouTubers who prep, shoot, and produce for yourself, because this shit is no joke. So I hope you enjoyed these educated gains and I will catch you in the next one.